We have never really asked anything of them. You know, they'll say they sent some troops to Afghanistan or the Sudan. And they did. They stayed a little off the front line.
457 British soldiers lost their lives in Afghanistan.
Absolute insult is an insult to 457 families who lost someone in Afghanistan. How dare he say we weren't on the front line?
Well, Donald Trump decided to take a swing at Britain's soldiers who fought in Afghanistan, suggesting that non-US NATO troops, quote, stayed off the front lines.
So I think, but I've always said, will they be there if we haven't needed them? And that's really the ultimate test. And I'm not sure of that. I know that we would have been there or we would be there, but will they be there? And let's hope that that never happens. We've never needed them. We have never really asked anything of them. You know, they'll say they sent some troops to Afghanistan or the Sudan. And they did. They stayed a little off the front lines. But we've been very good to Europe and to many other countries. And, you know, now under my administration, that began because we had a very successful first term. That began then, but it has to be a two-way street.
And the response from the UK was basically, as we say in Scotland, what are you talking about? Especially coming from Captain Bone Spurs himself.
He said that, we've come to Europe's aid in the past, but I doubt whether European countries would come to our aid. Well, we did in 2001, and indeed 467 British servicemen and women lost their lives in Afghanistan. Let's also point out that there are, I think, 43 Danish soldiers who lost their lives in Afghanistan. Actually, a higher proportion, if you look at it per 100,000 of population, than either Britain or, I think, indeed the United States lost in Afghanistan. So it's so insulting when he comes out with these things, isn't it? And so Mark Russo, credit to him for putting him right on that.
See, Trump has made many obscene comments, most of them intended to insult the people he was actually elected to serve, but he decided to do everything possible to further alienate our allies, claiming that NATO troops, particularly British forces, stayed a little off the front lines during the Afghanistan war. Now, not only is this completely incorrect, it's very insulting, obviously, because the UK's Afghanistan involvement wasn't symbolic at all. It was major. Britain deployed over 150,000 personnel across the conflict, and more than 450 UK service members were killed, with many more wounded or left with lasting physical and psychological injuries as a result. Many of those who fought in said war or loved ones who lost family members as a result took to the British airwaves this week to voice their rightful disgust at the US president.
It really does set you back a little bit. I think it's so disrespectful. You know, the 457 guys who paid the ultimate sacrifice, to them, their families, their mums, dads, girlfriends, wives, children, you know, so disrespectful to them. We were all out on the front line. You know, I remember working with some American soldiers in an EOD team. So if they were on the front line and we were stood next to them, you know, clearly we were on the front line as well. And
well, it's a real shame to hear that. The only time NATO has ever enacted Article 5 was after the 9/11 terrorist attacks on the United States, and the world rallied to the support of the US. Our agencies, our forces, our politicians, we all stood together, shoulder to shoulder, and responded. On Afghanistan, frankly, this is utterly ridiculous. Many courageous and honourable service personnel from many nations fought on the front line. Many fought way beyond it. I'd served 5 tours in Afghanistan. Many alongside my American colleagues, we shed blood, sweat and tears together, and not everybody came home. These are bonds, I think, forged in fire, protecting US or shared interests, but actually protecting democracy overall. And I'd suggest whoever believes these comments, come have a whiskey with me, my colleagues, their families, and importantly, the families of those that have made the ultimate sacrifice for both of our nations. It's also worth reminding everyone here in World War II, more British troops landed on D-Day than any other nation. It was an allied response, and united we conquer. Now, some advice for anyone who may be listening. There are 2 great sayings worth remembering. Number 1, there is only one worse thing than working with allies. That is working without them. And when you do, always remember, never above, never below, always side by side.
And Britain's leadership didn't treat it like an ordinary gaffe either. Prime Minister Keir Starmer condemned the comments as, quote, insulting and frankly appalling, emphasising that British troops fought and died alongside Americans.
Start by paying tribute to the 457 of our armed services who lost their lives in Afghanistan. I will never forget their courage, their bravery, and the sacrifice that they made for their country. There are many also who were injured, some with life-changing injuries. And so I consider President Trump's remarks to be insulting and frankly appalling. And I'm not surprised they've caused such hurt to the loved ones of those who were killed or injured, and in fact, across the country.
As well as politicians expressing a view, a lot of the relatives, some bereaved, others whose sons in particular suffered dreadful injuries. One is Diane Durney, mother of a man called Ben Parkinson, dreadful injuries. She has said that you need to be tougher with President Trump and demand an apology from him. Will you call for an apology from the president?
Well, I've made my position clear, and what I say to Diane is if I had misspoken in that way or said those words, I would certainly apologise, and I'd apologise to her.
This is becoming a bit of a habit now. You're having to distance yourself and criticise the president. It's about third or fourth time in this week. Are you getting a bit exasperated by some of the things President Trump says?
We have a very close relationship with the US, and that is important for our security, for our defence and our intelligence. And it's very important we maintain that relationship.
And it's one of those rare instances where Trump's comments are so obscene that it unites members from opposing political parties in the UK. Labour and Conservative leaders also called it disgraceful. Veteran groups and families of the fallen reacted with rightful anger. And you even have public figures, including Prince Harry, who served in Afghanistan, speaking out on the matter.
Well, in the last few minutes, we've heard from the Duke of Sussex, who has released a statement. This is what he says. In 2001, NATO invoked Article 5 for the first and only time in history. It meant that every allied nation was obliged to stand with the United States in Afghanistan in pursuit of our shared security. Allies answered that call. Prince Harry goes on to say, I served there, I made lifelong friends there, and I lost friends there. The United Kingdom alone had 457 service personnel killed. Thousands of lives were changed forever. Mothers and fathers buried, sons and daughters. Children were left without a parent. Families are left carrying the cost. Those sacrifices deserve to be spoken about truthfully and with respect, as we all remain united and loyal to the defence of diplomacy and peace. The words there in the last few moments of Prince Harry.
Now we get to the most pathetic part of all this, right? Trump insulting allied service members is bad on its own, but it is uniquely pathetic coming from someone whose record on military service is, well, complicated to say the least.
2 soldiers lost their lives in Afghanistan. Many more received life-changing injuries. Donald Trump avoided military service 5 times. How dare the coward in the White House question the sacrifice and bravery of British soldiers? And I am sick to the death of Nigel Farage and Reform supporting Donald Trump. They should be ashamed.
I mean, this is the same person who has decades of reports suggesting that he avoided the draft due to bone spurs. I mean, it's an extraordinary choice to play armchair warrior and question other people's frontline credibility. But this is Donald Trump, and he has done it time and time again. We all remember his remarks regarding John McCain.
It's typical Trump. All bluster, very little substance. He talks a tough game, but then when pressed on it, he's an armchair tough guy. I hate to say it, but this is a guy who said that John McCain is not a war hero, yet he sought his own 5 military deferments.
But these comments, they act as yet another reminder that under Trump, US diplomacy is less shared commitments and more public humiliation. But it is about time that those very leaders who are being humiliated hit back with authority.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.